There we go. That's what happens when you don't have your audio software loaded up before the show. That's called technical difficulties. Boy, oh boy, tonight's tonight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show where the numbers aren't the only things we count, like errors. And I come to you live from my moon base on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Technical difficulty Thursday. Yes, we return once again to the wonderful world of off-brand TED Talks, but hopefully no more flubs. Oh, well, what do you want from me? I'm not perfect most of the time. Hope you're all doing well this evening. And holy cats, before I even have a chance to say anything, Derek LaRue, thank you so much, especially on a night with already so many fumbles and flubs. Thank you so much for your generosity and continued support. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope from this point onward, earn your generosity. Thank you so much. And speaking of generosity, if you guys will at some point take a look at the fundraisers at the top of the chat box for our friends Moonshock and Angry Illinoisian. They've suffered some medical hardships in recent years, and they could use some help if you have a couple of bucks to spare. If you can't donate, that's fine, but if you can, share those out on social media. Thank you so much for that. But before I get too deeply into the show, who's joining me for this cavalcade of chaos? Noah Asensio, hello. Funtime Bats, hello. Mike R, hello. Miranda Stone, hello. Derek LaRue, of course, hello. Kiefer Dam, hello. Who else is here? Shell D, hello. Pissed Off Shih Tzu, hello. Jamie Melquist, hello. Tall Person, hello. Adabisi, hello. Right. Adabisi, have I seen you recently? I feel like it's been a long time since I've seen you around. Maybe I'm just fuzzing it or something. I don't know. Adabisi, hello. Jaeger Pony, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. A2P, hello. Blakester, hello. Who else is here? And then chat jumped. Of course it did. Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Simon Willikins, hello. Payar D. Bayar, hello. Bridget, hello. Anal Lynn, hello. Long time no see, I think. Unless my memory is completely failing me. Excuse me. Well, anyway, for those of you that are here, for those of you that might be lurking, for those of you in the future, hello. Dale Ford, hello. So tonight of nights, we have representation is more than just numbers. Well, okay, maybe that's so, but it is just numbers. It is numbers at some point, isn't it? So when I saw this title, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, what more could it be than numbers? I'm assuming, and I could be wrong. Well, first off, I guess it depends on what kind of representation we're talking about. If it's political representation, then it is really mostly numbers. But if it's representation insofar as, say, demographic representation in business and entertainment, things like that, then I suppose we might be hearing some kind of moral argument, as in we need to have our workforce reflect our communities that we serve, or people need to be able to see themselves in their role models or something. I don't know, but it caught my mind and I thought I'd take a look. As a programming note, I will say now, and I'll repeat by the end of the show, I am doing a Memorial Day weekend TEDx marathon of at least 3 episodes back to back. I believe I will do this Saturday. Yes, I will do it Saturday. What time shall I do it Saturday? How about 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. That sound okay? Hopefully so. I'm going to try to take Sunday and Monday off. Yeah, there won't be a Sunday stream this week. We're going to have a grand palooza on Saturday of 3 TEDx's back-to-back using 1 bingo card and 3 different colors for the circles. We'll see how many bingos, overlapping bingos, and maybe even our second blackout? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, so tentatively, let's say 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, this coming Saturday, May 27th. That's what it is. Yes? Yes, it is. So looking forward to that. I'll repeat that again at the end of the show so nobody misses out on that. Thank you, Adabisi. Been a while. Depression, school, physical illness, you name it. Holy cats, man. Well, I hope I can cheer you up at least tonight a little bit with some goofiness. But man, rest up, take care. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. And I had been wondering what happens. There's a lot of names from the olden days, names that we used to repeat very often on the Lords of the Night and so on. And I don't see some of those names as often. So when one pops up in the chat, I'm very happy to see that is the case. And I'm glad that you're here with us, and hope you have fun. You know what? You should join the Discord. I have a Discord server now. So stick around for that if you're not already. But anyway, let's get into it. Tonight's bingo card is bingo card C. C as in cookie. That's good enough for me. Links are in the description if you need your bingo cards ready. That was the result of the poll on Twitter. If you'd like to join in on the poll on Twitter, or just follow what I'm doing and what I'm saying, shenanigans and otherwise, follow me on Twitter, scribe_light there on the screen. But with all of that as preamble, and hopefully everybody's in by now, let's get on with it. This one clocks in at just under 13 minutes. This is from TEDx Butt Street. I'm going to say Butt Street because it's the best street. I don't know. Anyway, start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
Ethnic minority representation.
Okay, well, I didn't have to wait long to find out what we're talking about. Ethnic minority representation. And our speaker is a race equality specialist. I guess that's a title of a kind. Sounds good, says Mike R. Sounds good, says Dale Ford. Hear it and see it, says Advocatus Diaboli. And thank you, Miranda Stone, for putting my Twitter link in the chat. I don't know if I have a Twitter link. P Dog Knight is here. P Dog Knight. If you guys do not know about P Dog Knight and the mystery of what the P stands for, you'll have to ask him. Follow him on YouTube. He's got a daily morning show called The Morning Night Live, where he talks about the events of the day, current events, and so on and so forth. A great show. Glad to see him still trucking along. And check him out and follow him on Twitter. I think it's just P Dog Knight, right? So somebody find P Dog's Twitter link and put it in the chat. I appreciate it. All right, so race. Sorry, what was your specialty again?
Ethnic minority representation is more than just numbers.
All right. It might be more than just numbers, but it is dependent on numbers, isn't it?
It's more than just adding numbers into a sector or into a business.
Okay.
So much more than that.
Well, okay, I'm dying to know. What more is it?
It's about being able to make a difference, being able to make change, being able to influence decisions.
On the basis of what?
In the time I have with you, I wanted to explore how a lack of ethnic minority representation today has echoes in past racial segregation and racial restrictions in the UK, and it wasn't that long ago.
Okay, well, obviously I'm not a resident of the UK, so I'm not as reflexively familiar with United Kingdom history and laws and so on and so forth, but I guess I'll just have to hum a few bars and fake it.
I remember my first experience of racism, and it was linked to a lack of representation.
Okay.
I was 7 years of age in primary school.
All right, we have a childhood and or family anecdotes going to the bingo card, circling childhood or family anecdote. Remember, that's bingo card C. C is in cookie, and that's links are in the description, so circle on that one in free space. You were a 7-year-old, yeah.
With an afro that belonged in a Jackson 5. I don't know where that's gone, but... I love school, I love reading, and I was the only black kid in my class.
Okay, but it's not just about numbers, right?
And I can remember coming back after the summer break and coming into school, and teacher sat us all down and said, "We got a new book to read." And I sat there cross-legged.
Was it? I couldn't guess. But we also remember we are among 7-year-olds. So was it the teacher that said something nasty, or?
Put my milk down to one side and leaned in. What is this going to be? What book is this going to be about?
Yeah.
And teacher put the book in front of us, and it said, Little Black Sambo.
Uh-oh.
And I looked at it and went, as a 7-year-old, what's this going to be about? And for those who haven't come across it, these series of books, and there were loads of them, lots of booklets, they turned into a cartoon and board games, but it was a negative black caricature, a minstrel type figure.
Right.
Bug-eyed, huge lips, lived in the jungle with his parents called Mumbo and Jumbo. And I can remember just in one term of these books being released, I went from belonging in the class to not belonging.
Because children are mean? I mean, admittedly, that's probably, archaic, inappropriate. Yeah, wouldn't be done today. Yeah, okay. Legit. Not fun.
And my classmates would come to me at break times and say, you look like the boy in the book.
The 7-year-olds? Yeah, I can imagine they would.
You look like Sambo. I'm going to call you Sambo. Do your parents live in the jungle? Are they called Mumbo and Jumbo? Do you have to dance for your supper? And I can remember they were being curious. But that curiosity didn't feel good.
So they were being children. Yeah, no, yeah, being singled out, being either made fun of or whatever. Yeah, no, it sucks. It really sucks.
It felt a bit mean. It felt cruel. But it wasn't on them. I could just feel it.
So they weren't being mean, but you took it as mean. I mean, kind of a weird area to be in, right? You have genuine, just innocent, childish curiosity, and then, you feel singled out. Okay, yeah, no, at 7 years old, I'm sure that sucked.
They say that the first time you come across racism, you don't know what it is.
Whoa, wait. Okay. You just said the kids were curious. I didn't hear anything about racism.
But you feel it. And it was sad because these episodes of books that they introduced into schools at that time was the first kind of connection that a lot of children had with Black and ethnic minority people.
Okay, back when you were a kid in the UK, yeah, that's yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not trying to diminish exactly his experience per se, but his interpretation of it, or retroactive interpretation of the kid's motivation, seems a little off. So I'm going to be circling mind reading assumes motives, because how do you go from childish, innocent curiosity to racism? The books might have been. The kids? I don't know. I didn't quite get that one, but I'm going to circle it anyway. Okay, yes. Things when you were a child in the UK were worse than they are now. All right.
And it was such a negative stereotype.
Sure.
It was a way of sort of like separating you out in class.
Yeah.
Like, you guys belong. You guys don't quite belong.
Yeah, it's almost like racial affinity groups in elementary schools. But obviously that would never happen today.
Know your place.
Yes.
My mum could see me withdrawing from school.
Maybe then you can empathize with what's going on in a lot of schools today when it comes to critical race theory and the presumption of either villainy or victimhood on the basis of your skin color. I mean, what's old again? What's old is new again, as they say.
And so we had a discussion. I told her about the books. And we went up to school. My mum was going to complain.
Okay.
So we went into school. The teacher said, well, the books are on the curriculum. No one else has complained. So if you feel that your child is having a bad effect on their self-esteem, I suggest that your child just sits out of class while we read these books.
Now, see, that's an anecdote that I could believe, because when I think about the kind of bureaucracy and officialdom that, not with this kind of specific example, but that I've encountered with elementary schools and teachers and officials and things, I could, and especially given how probably far back in time this is going, I could believe that was the response.
So that's what I did. I sat out on the bench outside of class, and I went from loving reading time to not thinking very much of it.
That's all they read? So every reading time now was one of those books. Really?
And looking back, I'm thinking about representation. And it wasn't just about the negative stereotype in the book. It wasn't just about that. It wasn't just about Little Black Sambo.
All right.
It was about the fact that there was a lack of representation on the Parents Teachers Association.
Right. So it's not just about numbers. Okay. So did your parents decide to get involved? You were thinking this at 7 years old, but okay. Did your parents decide to become involved in the Parent Teachers Association or the school board or however it works in the UK?
There was a lack of representation in the teaching staff. There was a lack of representation in teaching leadership.
Okay, well, here's where things kind of start going off the wayside. No one is representing anyone but themselves. Okay, skin colors, racial demographics are not monoliths. You, on that stage, do not represent any demographic. You represent yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your stories, and so on. All right. Now, if you want to find people who will advocate for the things that you believe in, but you think that they only apply to people who have your same skin color, people can believe in things that would support your cause that don't necessarily look like you. But you're going to assume that this is where it starts getting a little hazy for me.
With the folks that set the curriculum at all levels of the primary education system. And over the years, I've looked back at this incident and I came across a concept that's known as the color bar.
The color bar. Okay, well, he says he came across it, so it's not a buzzword that he's inventing here. So, all right, let's go over the bingo card real quick, just to make sure I haven't missed anything. Plays victim. So far, he hasn't gone so beyond the line that it feels like he's playing up anything. Being a little kid, being singled out, the teachers didn't give a rip. I could believe it. I don't think that's making anything up so far, or overplaying it, let's say. Leaves out vital context. Not yet. Weightless example. Well, I'm still waiting to hear why representation is more than numbers. Because he's like, there's not enough people like me on the board and thing. That's numbers. That's numbers. And also I already circled mind reading assumes motives. So assuming that someone who happens to share your same skin color is going to believe in the same things you believe in. Anecdote that probably never happened. I can believe these anecdotes happen. They don't sound too far out of the beyond the pale. Benevolent condescension, not yet. Excuse me. Self-vilification or wretchedness, no. Feminism, no. Privilege, no. Sales pitch for product or service, no. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. I think the kid's reactions and his interpretation of them would count. Because he decided to internalize their curiosity and turn it into something that he can't say for certain that it was, but then he decided to brand it as racism. Patriarchy, no. Wage gap, no. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, not yet. Word salad, not yet. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, well, we'll probably get there, or if not literally, then probably an aggregate. Marginalization, yes, because he felt like he didn't belong. He was on the outside of the class, sitting on the bench, so on. Contradicts own point or argument. Well, we haven't had one yet. Systemic or institutional. I mean, these books are part of the curriculum. I'll wait on that one. A list, no formal list yet. White supremacy, that might be inherent to this. We'll wait and see. Argumentative non sequitur, not yet. And lastly, collectivize his own demographic. Pretty much. I mean, we're talking about representation, people on the board, etc., PTA, and so on. So far I have childhood or family anecdote, microaggressions, unconscious bias, free space, mind reading assumes motives, marginalized or marginalization, and lastly, collectivizes own demographic. And before I go any further, thank you, You're Ridiculous Lunatic. Hello, Scribbles. Hope you are well. I'm doing great. Thank you, Ridiculous Lunatic. And thank you so much for your donation. Appreciate it. I hope you're doing well as well. Thank you so much. All right, let's keep going.
Well, I didn't know much about this, and I read on and did some more research.
The color bar.
And the color bar was a form of racial segregation and a form of racial restriction that existed right up until 1976, before it became outlawed in the UK.
Okay.
It wasn't formal. It wasn't like you see written in law, like in Jim Crow in the southern states of America or apartheid in South Africa. It wasn't written into law. It was informal.
Okay.
On the basis of your skin, an ethnic minority, you could be refused services.
Okay. I'm going to take his word for it unless somebody tells me otherwise, because I don't know anything really about UK, let's say, policy, custom, official or otherwise when it comes to this stuff. So, okay, I can believe it.
So you could be refused accommodation. You could be refused to be a bank loan if you're going to get some finance to set up your business. You could be refused to be a patron in a hotel, in a restaurant, in a theater, the cinema. Could be refused entry and service.
Okay, back up until 1976, you said? So it hasn't been in place or practice for many, many, many years. All right.
And Neil Sinclair, who's a local historian in this area, wrote in the Tiger Bay Tales of how the color bar kicked in when you lived in Tiger Bay over here. You crossed the bridge into Cardiff city centre, and the color bar would kick in and you would be refused services at certain businesses and establishments. And the color bar just was in employment too.
Okay. What is a defunct non-official policy from the late 70s, mid 70s, sorry, have to do with today?
So I'm reminded of this story of Guy Bailey, 1960s Bristol.
1960s, okay.
Guy Bailey got an interview. He was going to work on the buses. Great, he thinks. Excellent, I've got an interview. Here we go. So he presents himself at the office, and he goes in, and he can see the shock on the receptionist's face. And he sees a reception person go into the back room, and he hears this. Your 2 o'clock appointment's here, but he's black. And Guy Bailey could also hear the manager saying, tell him we have no vacancies.
Do you mean to tell me that there was rampant racial discrimination in employment in the 1960s? Okay.
And that's how it went down.
Yes.
Guy Bailey didn't have any opportunity to complain because it was legal. It was lawful. The bus company in Bristol wasn't hiring black and ethnic minority people.
I thought the color bar wasn't a law. Okay. Either way, I see people putting X to doubt in the chat. He's relaying someone else's anecdote, and he's talking about someone being denied employment in the 1960s because of their race. Again, within the context of the presentation, I don't have any reason to doubt that is possible. So yeah, I don't inherently doubt it. My only question right now, what relevance is this to whatever we're here to talk about? Representation isn't just about numbers. Okay, when do we get to that part?
And Guy Bailey made it to the interview. For so many people at that time, their name or their ethnicity would flag them, and they wouldn't even get past the shortlisting stage. Oh,
and so many things have changed since then, because DEI initiatives don't filter people out on the basis of their race or ethnicity or gender. No, that never happens today. No, that practice has gone into the dustbin of history, obviously, you know. But yeah, anyway, so this guy in the 1960s was treated unfairly. I can believe it. Why are we here again?
And it wasn't just about finding employment. It was about progressing in employment too.
Oh, you don't say. Gosh, you mean opportunities and advancement in employment in the 1960s for minorities was difficult, if not impossible, depending on where you were. Again, this isn't me downplaying it. Yeah, it was a terrible time and it was a terrible way of doing things. And I thought we had learned our lessons after the 60s, and the UK had as well, presumably. But so what?
I'm reminded of the story of Joseph Luke.
Oh, okay. Do you have any stories about why we're here?
From Guyana, black guy, working 1960s for British Rail.
1960s was a terrible time. I'm getting frustrated now. Like, okay, great. And?
In London, carriage cleaner. And he progressed from carriage cleaner to van driver, shuttling resources and utilities between the stations in London.
Okay.
He's thinking, great, they're seeing something in me. I'm progressing. My hard work is paying off.
Yeah.
But what happened when his new team found out that a black guy was joining their crew?
I can't even hazard a guess.
They went on strike.
Man, you know, there are some expressions of blatant racism that are just hilarious now. There's it reminds me of an episode of the old X-Men cartoon show. And who knows what they're going to do with the reboot. But the old X-Men cartoon show, if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken, it was I think it was a 2 or 3-parter or something. I think it might have been the Days of Future Past adaptation for the cartoon. And or it had something to do with like Storm and some of the other X-Men, like time traveling. And anyway, so Storm and Wolverine in this instance were a couple, and they were at like a diner or something, and some like hillbilly or something there in the diner makes a comment about a white guy and a black girl dating and mixing races and things. And Storm, who's from a future where there's more terrible things happening or something, she looks at him and says, "Skin color discrimination? How droll," or something like that, or how quaint. You know, and I just remember that so much because it's just, that's, you know, whatever future Storm is coming from, it's probably riddled with sentinels and, you know, massacres and things, but at least they'd gotten past skin color racism at that point. But yeah, okay, it went on strike because their coworker was black. That's retrospectively hilarious.
With union support. Until British Rail removed Joseph's promotion.
Oh, geez.
That's how it went down.
Yeah, I can believe it. 1960s, huh? You don't say.
So what do we, when we're looking at these things, the color bar essentially pushed black and ethnic minorities into the margins of work.
Yes. Yes, back in the 60s up to the mid 70s. And how does this... Okay. I don't mean to be a broken record. It's just to the way my mind works. I keep waiting for that other shoe to drop, and it's not coming.
Having to take lower wages, precarious working arrangements, not being seen as leadership material, and able to complain. Even if you did, your complaint will not be investigated.
You ridiculous lunatic. I have to correct you. Storm was from Africa. I forget which particular country was the canon. I thought it was Kenya. I could be mistaken. But if I remember correctly, she did come from Africa. Well, I mean, no, not, I mean, not Egypt. No, you say, sorry. I know Egypt is in Africa. I'm talking about it wasn't Egypt. Sorry, she was Egyptian. No, I thought she was from. Was she from? I thought she was from Kenya. Was it Egypt? Really? I mean, I remember that she was a street urchin, and that Professor Xavier or somebody came across her at one point or detected her when she was young. Was she from Egypt? If she was, I apologize. My brain says she was from like Kenya or South Africa or something. But okay, anyway, sorry. Comic book lore that I've obviously gone off the rails on.
The color bar was a kind of split in society at the time, with a lot of people not wanting to mix races in the workplace. But the majority did and could see the unfairness. And so the color bar was outlawed in 1976 in the last series of 3 race relations acts.
Okay, so everything you're talking about is at least, what, 47 years old at this point? So 4 decades in the past, nearly half a century has gone by since all this stuff was outlawed. Okay.
Got away with a color bar. But the echoes of the color bar still exist with us today.
Okay, so that's okay. All right. So this is all 50 years on, something that you had never heard of until someone told you about it still echoes with us today. Okay.
We've seen numerous reports and inquiries. The Scarman Review, the Stephen Lawrence Inquiry, 30 years now.
I don't know what those are. I have no reference, so I don't know what he's talking about. But I'm a dumb Yankee, so what do I know?
The Lammy Review, the Morris Inquiry, the McGregor-Smith Review.
Okay, for those of us in the cheap seats, what do all those have to do with what? I'm assuming that there's some kind of racial equality inquiries or something.
The Baroness Casey Review. How many inquiries do we need to see that still say the same thing over and over?
Which is?
We still see racism in society today.
Of course. Oh, dude. Okay. All right. Look. As much as I would love to think that the simple lessons of history would echo through all of us and teach us all a lesson, we're never going to eliminate murder. We can outlaw murder until the end of time, and we have. Somehow it keeps happening. We can make racial discrimination in our institutions and our businesses and so on illegal, but somehow racism will still exist. You're right. You're right. Racism still exists. Racism will always exist. We can make it unfashionable. We can point out how wrong it is to assess people on the basis of their skin color or their ethnicity or their gender or whatever. You know, we've done it in law over here in the United States, and yet somehow it just keeps happening. You know why? I'll tell you why. Laws are confessions of human fallibility. They're not cure-alls. They're not panaceas. They are confessions. They are recognitions that people have tendencies to do terrible things to one another. And when we find something so egregious that we could conceivably try to legislate some consequences for doing it blatantly and in places where you shouldn't, and where other people's lives and civil rights are at stake, presumably there will be something that happens of a negative type to you if you get caught doing it. But it doesn't eliminate the practice. Okay, yeah, so I'll back up a little bit. Boy, we're almost done with this thing, and I haven't heard anything so far. Okay.
Same thing over and over. We still see racism in society today, and we still see an overrepresentation of Black and ethnic minorities in precarious working arrangements with little or no opportunity for progression.
Overrepresentation? Based on what? This is me not living in the UK. I don't know the circumstances of what's going on in the UK.
And an underrepresentation in leadership and management positions?
Okay, well, all right. So finally, after 10 minutes, 27 seconds of a just shy of 13-minute presentation, you have stated your true complaint and problem. All right. What do you suggest be done to solve this problem?
So how do we tackle this?
You've got 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Well, the first thing is,
The first thing, that sounds like a list, or at least the beginning of a list, if the litany of inquiries he gave us a minute ago wasn't enough. So, all right.
leaders have got to show up. Leaders set the tone. They set the culture.
Leaders have to show up. Well, I mean, if they're being employed by the state to do a job legislatively or in business or something, I would hope they show up, else they probably shouldn't be drawing a paycheck. But what do you mean?
And it's really important they come forward and own this. And I don't mean
What?
reading somebody else's script.
What?
I mean actually doing the work and coming to that understanding of what racism is about.
Leaders need to show up to do the work to understand what racism is about. It's not a really difficult lesson. It's the elevation and or denigration of people on the basis of their skin color. It can be practiced by anybody regardless of their skin color. It can be practiced, in fact, by people against people of their own skin color. If you have some self-hatred going on or something else, it's not difficult to understand. It's very simple. What do you want them to do specifically?
And it's also having an anti-racist action plan can be really useful too. And I like an anti-racist action plan.
You like an anti-racist action plan. Have you read what the tenets are of anti-racism and what anti-racism teaches? Because anti-racism is kind of like the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It sounds like a positive thing, and then there's actually how it works.
Like anti-racism. It's like a double whammy, a double punch to try and get rid of things.
Like what? Like how? What do you want to see happen? How would you suggest these problems be solved?
On one side, anti-racism says we acknowledge that it exists.
No, anti-racism says that racism is a universal constant. It is in all things, all segments of our society, all institutions. You cannot avoid racism. It is always there. It is ingrained in all things. In fact, no one is free from being racist. There are only two ways of being. You're either a racist or you're an anti-racist. Being a racist is just being a racist. If you're an anti-racist, all that says is that you are confessing to your own inherent racism. Anti-racism doesn't get rid of racism. It thrives on the perpetuation of racism and the belief that everyone is racist. And I'm not making that up. That's not me just pulling something out of thin air. That is directly from the mouth of the man who wrote the book on how to be anti-racist, Ibram X. Kendi. There is a TEDx talk that I covered a couple of years ago now in my library. I forget the name of it all of a sudden, but you can probably find it, or I'll find the link to it, or maybe some industrious person in the chat will provide it, where he's being interviewed by two ladies on a Zoom call. And to this day, I am so happy that those two ladies were talking to him because they didn't let him get away from the question. They asked him 3 different times to explain what anti-racism is. His first 2 answers were the verbal equivalent of walls of text. And only on the third one did he finally whittle it down to the elevator pitch. And that's where the truth really lay. So what you want out of anti-racism is not what you're going to get. I hate to tell you this.
And secondly, by doing nothing, even though you might not consider yourselves to be racist, by doing nothing, we allow it to continue.
What to continue? You've described what you say is the problem. There aren't enough people who look like you in places of authority. So you want leaders to show up and understand what racism is. And number two, you don't want people to be quiet about it. I don't know if you've noticed the recent zeitgeist in the Western world. No one is quiet about the concept of racism. No one. It's starting to lose its edge. It's laid out as an accusation so often. What do you want to see done? What solutions do you offer up for what you cite as a problem?
And on the other side, it's about being action-orientated to do something about it.
Such as?
To eliminate it.
You can't. Dude, look, trust me. If I could wave a magic wand and make all negative human behaviors one to another disappear in an instant, I would do it. You know, if I could stop people being terrible to each other, whatever. You know, if that was my last act, if I could say, I will burn out all of my life force in this moment, and as a result of that, no one will be terrible to each other ever again, and I just blip out of existence, I would do it. Because it'd be a heck of a lot better than what people do to each other on a daily basis around the world. Okay, but I hate to tell you this. You cannot eliminate racism. You can encourage people to look past that stuff and relegate it as an irrelevancy, though. That's what we should be doing. You want to talk about representation? Well, representation of what? How about representation of ideas? How about representation of putting someone's merit beyond anything that has to do with their skin color? Putting skin color in the same category as eye color or hair color as something that you would assess somebody by. How about promoting that? Because I hate to tell you this, I really do. Anti-racism doesn't do that. Anti-racism focuses on racial identity, and racial identity is poison and is antithetical to the idea of getting rid of racism. It still divides. It still categorizes. I appreciate your intentions, and I understand what you want. The path you are taking and advocating for is not going to achieve what you want to have happen.
Orientated to do something about it, to eliminate it, to remove those barriers, looking at practices and processes through an anti-racist lens and removing those things.
That's not what it does, dude. I hate to tell you this. I really do. You really should pay attention very specifically to what anti-racism teaches. It pushes race identity politics that will not eliminate racism, that will perpetuate it.
Addressing racial disparities with some positive action.
Such as what? What would you suggest be done? Give us, I mean, you got less than a minute. Give us at least one example, please. I'm proud. I'm proud to be Welsh. I'm proud to be Welsh because we're the first country, as far as I know, in the world whose government has an anti-racist action plan. Oh, goody.
The first one.
How's that working out for Wales then? Or Welshland or whatever it's called. I don't know. I'm a Yankee. I don't know any of these things. How's that working out? So racism has been eliminated where you live? I mean, if they have an anti-racist action plan, they must have already just blipped it out of existence, right? It's gone. Doesn't exist anymore.
And it was ratified over there in the Senate.
Uh-huh. So racism's dead for the Welsh?
Fantastic.
Uh-huh.
And I'm hopeful that this post-George Floyd generation really wants to grapple with this issue. They're showing up, and allies are showing up too.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that they'll make this better for the next generation.
Hope does not spring eternal for me on that front. Have you seen what the recent generation is pushing a lot of the time?
I'll end by saying this.
Okay.
Racial disparities
do not indicate racial injustices inherently. A disparity does not inherently indicate an inequity. Oh, sorry, I was jumping in.
And racial segregation is still relevant today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why ethnic minority representation is more than just numbers. It's more than just putting people in a sector. It's ensuring that they're able to make change and being able to make an impact.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All the laws and policies that you cited became defunct, at least in the 70s. There have been many laws. I know at least this part. There have been many laws passed since 1976 in the UK and so on that have outlawed blatant discrimination such as you describe has happened in the past, just like has happened in America. Right? So what is stopping you? Like if you were a 7-year-old today, okay, if the exact same thing started happening to you today, what do you think would have happened to that teacher showing those books to that classroom? You think that teacher would have gotten away with that? Do you think a parent complaining to that teacher about that book would have been just brushed aside the way that your teacher had? Can you not at least acknowledge that things are different now than they were in 1966 in the UK? And do you really think an anti-racist action plan is going to eliminate racism? I would love to know the details of the Welsh anti-racist action plan. How's that going? Okay, well, anyway, not exactly the most effective presentation I've watched before, but then, you know, this happens from time to time on TED. I mean, it's TED excellence, right? It's not TED perfection. All right, let's go to the bingo card. I'm going to zoom in on this just a smidge. Is that too much? No, that's fine. All right, so the bingo card as I have it, kind of sparse right now. I'll go over it one more time by myself. If you guys have arguments for squares to be circled, please hold on to them, and I will get to your arguments shortly. Plays victim. Again, I didn't think that the stories he was putting down about his own personal experience were so far outside the realm of possibility for the era that he grew up in, I'm assuming. I can't say he was playing a victim. I mean, I'll take arguments to the contrary, but leaves out vital context. Yeah, what do you want to have happen? Like, literally, what good is an anti-racist program? What is that going to do? What is that going to change? You want to see leaders show up and make changes. Well, what changes would you want to see? What laws would you want to be passed or policies initiated that you think would solve the problem? On the high level, he never gave us anything. Waitlist example. All the 1960s stuff and like, what does that have to do with anything today? Oh, they echo into today. How? Where? Because racism hasn't ended? That didn't make any sense. What is... I just noticed that he didn't give us a current example to compare and contrast with the 1960s examples he gave us. You know, like back in the 1960s, this guy had this, and this happened to him. And that was the 1960s when there was the color bar and this and this. Now you'd think that all of that would have been resolved by now, but just the other day, something like that would have made more sense to me. You know, if you're going to say that things haven't changed, you have to at least give us an example that things haven't changed. Anyway, anecdote that probably never happened. I know, I'm happy to take arguments to the contrary on this. None of the anecdotes he gave about what happened to him in elementary school or the historical examples he gave, none of them sounded beyond the pale of what was, I have to assume, entirely likely back in the 60s and 70s and when he was a little kid. I mean, I've heard about those books he was talking about, so I know that they existed. So the idea that it was read in school and he felt othered and everything, I can believe it. And that a teacher would just say, well, it's part of the curriculum, and then brush off the mother's complaint. I can believe it. So benevolent condescension. That's a tough one. I don't think so. I didn't detect anything benevolently condescending per se. overly optimistic about the effects of anti-racism, maybe, but not benevolently condescending. Self-vilification or wretchedness, no. Feminism, no. Privilege, it was definitely implied with the employment stuff from the 1960s and the striking of the union strike because of the black employee and so on. So yeah, I can kind of get on that. Sales pitch for product or service. Anti-racism. I know it's not exactly falls within that, but it is a product and it is being touted as a service now because you've got experts in it and advocates for it and so on, and obviously legislation and government for it. So I'm going to be a little loose on my definition there for that one, but he was really going on and trying to sell you on that idea. Patriarchy, no. Wage gap. He talked about did he ever talk about disparities in pay? I don't know if he did. I know he talked about guys trying to get jobs and things in the 60s, but I don't know that he made that a particular showcase point of his presentation. Attempt to coin new buzz phrase? No. Color bar is apparently historical. Anti-racism is not something he came up with. Word salad. I understood everything he was saying. There wasn't just like any gobbledygook that came out. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is heavily implied, if not specifically said over the course of the deal. And I think he might have said equity at one point or another, or something close to it. So circle on that one. Contradicts own point or argument. Well, for the sake of his argument, he didn't contradict his own point by bringing up anti-racism. I mean, that's my analysis and my opinion. But did he contradict his own point? I'm trying to figure out what his point exactly was. I don't think so, but maybe my mind is befuddled. You guys can check me on that one. Systemic institutional. He was talking about the color bar. While not a legal standard, it was a custom policy, etc. Talked about the unions, talked about denying employment, and so on. So that works. White supremacy. It was more than implied as a running theme within the course of the presentation, obviously in contrast because minorities and so on and so forth. So as a result of that...
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
Our first bingo, maybe not our last. And lastly, argumentative non sequitur. Something he brought up that had nothing to do with anything and went by the wayside. I mean, it all related to the history of racism in the UK or current policies thereof and things. So I'm trying to think of anything that was just completely laid out but never had anything to do with anything. Nothing's coming to mind. I'm happy to take arguments. But anyway, that's the bingo card as I have it. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, please put them in the chat now. If you can tag more clearly from other stuff, I'd appreciate it. If you've already put up an argument and I've missed it because it's already scrolled up, please just repost it. Let's see. Roger Reynolds, was there anything else going on during the time that could have caused the strike to happen? Don't know. Not within the realm of the presentation to know. Advocatus Diaboli, non sequitur. His conclusion that past discrimination echoes into the present day lack of representation does not logically follow what he said. Never bridge the gap, just state it as fact. Is that a non sequitur or is that a weightless example? Or leaves out vital context? I don't know if that's technically a non sequitur. It's an incompleted thought, as you say, or incomplete thought, as you say. But I don't know if that counts as a non sequitur. Got to be a little strict now because we are in a bingo square for that one. So I need a really, really good argument that could have been covered by another square. Adabisi, Scribble, he kind of said, quote, "You got to do better, Senator," in a different phrase. That's a form of word salad, sir. Actually, you know what? I did stop on that, didn't I? Trying to figure out what he was talking about. Yeah, you have to show up to do what under. Yeah. All right. I'll give that to you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you got to do better, Senator. Oh man, I can't wait for the next Captain America movie. Oh boy, oh boy. Apparently the Serpent Society is going to be part of the villain squad in that one. Oh man, I can't wait to see how they do the Serpent Society. You ever seen the Serpent Society in the comic books? Yeah, those costumes. What kind of analogs they're going to do for the movie with some of those? Oh man. Let's see. What else we got? Assassin of the Grey played victim with the woe is me living in a Who White Devil's world. Like I say, all I have to go on is what's within the presentation. The examples that he brought up of his own experience didn't sound outside the realm of possibility. And it's about playing the victim. It's about, putting on a show of it or trying to make a mountain out of a molehill or something. And nothing that he said sounded out of place for the time that he grew up in and what he might have experienced. And yeah, he took what he first described as curiosity from children and turned it into racism, which may or may not be the case because obviously kids can be mean and stupid as well. But outside of that, I don't know. Let's see. Ebony Williams says, wasn't this whole talk word salad? Well, I mean, in a sense it was because it never got around to any cohesive point or argument. Things were bad in the past and we have to do better. Yeah. I mean, actually the entire talk might've been a weightless example. That might've been better. Let's see. Adam Castelli, that would be non sequitur. What would be? Adam BC again, plays victim. He said he used the past to play victim on a past. That's kind. Give me more. That's kind of a stretch. I don't know if that quite clicks. Advocate is non sequitur. Does not follow. This entire talk fits since he stated his stated premise conclusion and never gave an actual argument or logic. Representation is more than just numbers. And he did state the title. That's the thing. Sometimes TEDx and TED will put a title onto a video that isn't actually presented anywhere in the actual talk. It's some kind of summary. Maybe the author gave that title. Maybe I've seen TEDx and TED change titles and post the same video a couple of times. The entire talk was a non sequitur because the title was never brought to fruition. Oh, yeah. I can't argue with that logic.
Bingo.
What?
Of course!
All right, you got me. 2 bingos, double bingo. I really need to get some stingers for like double bingo. Well, when we get a double bingo, like 2 at once or something, or a triple bingo. I don't have any stingers for multiple bingos yet. I keep meaning to cook one up or 2, but I don't have them yet. All right, second bingo. I got, boy, this went a lot quicker than I thought it would. I thought there'd be more to dive into on this one, but hey, sometimes talks are short or subjects are short. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? While I'm waiting for any other arguments and another programming note, again, Saturday, May 27th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time will be the Memorial Day weekend TED Excellence Marathon, where I'll be going through in a row at least 3 TEDx talks using 1 bingo card and using 3 different colored circles to represent each one of the talks, and we'll see how many bingos we can get as a combination or as an overlap between those 3. Maybe we'll get a blackout, maybe we won't. Maybe they'll all miss 1 square or something. We'll find out. And each of the talks will be on a different subject. There's no particular theme. It's just a few that I've been warehousing for a while now. And we'll take a look at those and see what happens. So yeah, if you find yourself without anywhere to go or anything to do on the Memorial Day weekend, if you happen to be a Yankee like me, maybe hang out for a bit, or you can listen to it later. That's good too. Also, I wanted to thank everybody here and otherwise for your support of the Living on Borrowed Crime series. The latest episode just recently crested 1,500 views, which I know doesn't sound like a lot in the grand world of YouTube, but for the sake of that series and my channel, that's pretty good. And do know that the next episode of Living on Borrowed Crime will be on Saturday, June 10th at, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And the reason that it has to be early in the morning is because my chief guest for that episode is in the European territories. And that is going to be The Disturbing Truth. And so far, also joining me with The Disturbing Truth will be Stay Awake and Dave's Lemonade. I'm really looking forward to that one. I love Disturbing Truth's content, even if the subject matter he covers is decidedly not fun and not for the faint of heart. But we'll cover that in a couple of weeks. Let's see. Assassin of the Gray. Scribe like, this guy does not want justice. He wants violent payback against the white. I didn't get anything like that, Gray. I didn't pick up anything like that from it. Yeah, that's trying to find a message that wasn't really there. So, well, not seeing. What is it? The Disturbing Truth is that your guest is in Europe. No. His channel is called The Disturbing Truth, and he is in Europe. And because of the time zones, I have to set the show early in my morning, so I make it for his early evening. That's how that works. So there you go. Discord was asked in the chat. Yes, here's a link to the Discord in the chat right now. It's good for 1 day. And if you'd like to join the Discord, you just have to click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. But along with Say Hello, you also have to tell us the secret word for this particular stream. And today's secret word is whales. That's the place, not the animal. But if you put the animal in there too, then we'll at least know you listen to the end, and that'll tell us that you watch the show, and then you can become a member. But yes, with that, everyone, I'm going to start wrapping things up. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this. Even though it wasn't the most exciting TEDx ever, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. C is for cookie. That's good enough for me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity, either to myself or to the fundraisers pinned to the top of the chat box. Thank you guys so much for your support. And with that, everyone, thank you so much for coming again. Hope you're all having a good Thursday. Hope you have a good Friday upcoming. If you have Monday off for Memorial Day, please take a moment to think about those that have died in service of our country and enjoy your day off. Otherwise, barbecues and so on. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.